Welcome to I Wrote That, a podcast where we bring authors and industry experts together to talk about all things books and make the journey to authorship just a little bit easier. My name is Larissa Sohan, and I am the CEO of Next Page Publishing, a hybrid publishing house where we help entrepreneurs write books to grow their businesses. In 2021, I published my first sci-fi novel, The Defender, through a hybrid publishing company, and from that experience, I learned exactly what not to do. When I joined with this very big publishing company, I was put in a system that was designed to push out thousands of books a year, and I was just a cog in the wheel. And it was heartbreaking when my first book was published and it was a flop. In that moment, I made it my mission to found a hybrid publishing company that was going to give aspiring authors the experience that they deserve. Now I'm on a mission to help aspiring authors feel like they are in control of the publishing journey and that they are supported by a team of experts who genuinely want the best for them and their books. If you are in the very beginning of your journey, or maybe you have a manuscript that you're finished and you're not sure how to get it out into the world, I encourage you to reach out to us at nextpagepublishing.net. You can schedule your free discovery call and find out how our team of experts can make your journey to being a published author easy, smooth, and successful. Now, without further ado, let's get on to our next amazing guest and make your journey to authorship a little less complicated. Every time we bring in a guest that is on the verge of publishing, I get really, really excited. And she told me literally 30 seconds before recording that, oh, hey, did I mention I'm publishing a book? And I'm like, no, we need to talk about this. So today I'm introducing Daneika Glenn, and she is on the cusp of becoming a first-time author. But her overall mission is to help creatives struggling with the self-doubt find their voice, increase their confidence, and use their creativity to heal and empower their lives. And when we think of authors, this is a really timely topic. She is a certified Wayfinder life coach, an ICF accredited life coach, and the author of The Women You Were Always Meant to Be, which is a digital journaling course, and the creator of learningtofly.org, which is really cool. And I'm hoping there's a spin on words because she used to be a flight attendant there. So flying has been in her blood for a long time. Welcome, Daneika.
Thank you, Larissa, for having me.
Yeah, and today we're here to talk about that inner critic that can get us down. And I have to say, this episode's going to air in a couple of weeks, so we're pre-recording, but I just did a live in-person event, the first one I've done since I launched my first book. And that inner critic, while it stayed quiet, she stayed down during the writer's event, and it was good. And I sold lots of copies of my books, and I had great conversations. By the time I was home at night in my bed, that inner critic was roaring in my head to the point where I was almost in tears of who am I to do this? So I'm really glad to have you here to talk about your experience, but maybe just take a second to introduce yourself in your own words.
Sure. So as you said, my name is Daneika Glenn. I think the most important thing to know about me is I consider myself an artist first and foremost. So yes, I am a writer, but I just love making things, period. And so I understand very well that inner critic and how that can get in the way and really stop us from showing up for what we want to birth in the world. It can make us cry, it can make us doubt, all of the things that you said, and I have lots of firsthand experience with this voice.
Yeah, and I think for those of you listening, if you're wondering what phase the inner critic applies to, like we have the four phases, the writing, editing, marketing, and publishing. It's all phases. This is an all phases episode because the inner critic is going to sound a little different in every phase of the process. And you can speak to this, Daneika, because you're on the cusp of publishing. So you don't have, maybe you can't speak to the actual published part yet of the inner critic of like people are reading your work and holy crap, it's scary. But everything up until this point you've lived. So what is the inner critic?
So for me, the way I like to define it is like the internalized negative voice of some long lost authority figure. So it could be a parent, it could be the teacher from fourth grade who, said, who do you think you are to, write this book or create this essay? Just for me, that is the view on it. It is this externalized authority figure. And we have bought into the belief of what we remember from experience. And so it's always focused on what is wrong, what you can't do, comparing you to others, and whether it's I don't have the credentials, I don't have the education, I'm not smart enough, the list goes on and on. But I think for me and for most artists that I talk to, it's always about lack and attack. For me, in the beginning of this journey, I've been writing since I was a kid, but mainly to myself, not sharing with the world. And I have to say, Larissa, I really wasn't aware of the inner critical voice, meaning that I accepted it as my own voice, like the inner judge. I accepted it as the voice of truth. I wasn't able to distinguish, like, oh yeah, what it's saying isn't true. Like, no, it is true. So that caused a lot of writer's block and showing up and feeling safe enough to share.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. So I'm on the path of writing my own. I'm calling it a memoir at this point, but I don't know that that's actually what it's going to turn out to be. Whether it's like more of a self-help book of it's like picking at the canvas of art, and underneath the canvas, there's all these little defects that you're learning to work around. And in my book, those defects are these limiting beliefs, that inner critic that we're talking about. And I have a 6-year-old, and I am on the cusp of helping her develop all of these beliefs about herself. And I love what you said about it usually comes from an authority figure, because something someone much wiser than me said, my good friend Christy Holt once said, was, you are not your brain. Your brain is someone else. And I've been trying to teach that to my daughter. And as an adult, I can conceptualize what that means, right? And understand that. But Haley, my daughter, she's like, what the hell are you talking about? That makes no sense, Mom. Like, of course I'm in control of my brain. And it's just that understanding that there are more voices than our own that live in our head. Those authority figures, my mom's voice lives in my head. My grandma's voice lives in my head, and their voice is not mine, but it has formed the opinions of myself. So I think it's really cool that you said that. What are some of the more common things that that voice, those voices, those people that are living in our heads are saying to us that we are taking as gospel, that we are believing without questioning?
Literally wanted to answer this question, and then of course I had to ask you yours. So the most common belief, I think, as a summary of the inner critic, is it's always rooted in not being enough or lacking. Again, so it's, who do you think you are? You can't do that. You don't know what you're talking about. You can't be a writer. You can't even spell that well, or, on and on and on. So I think mine tends to chime in with the, who do you think you are?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine is, I'm the worst. And that's the one for me. Isn't that brutal? That's my go-to. And I was just writing about it yesterday. And I have this style of writing where I repeat, especially my memoir, I repeat the shitty things I say to myself often, because that is how they show up in my life. And I know I mutter it under my breath around my daughter. I know the power that it holds over me, and I know where it came from. I know whose voice that is in my head. So I'm getting a lot better at recognizing these things. And I'm getting to the point in my life where I can say, oh no, shut up, you little voice. That is not true. There are a million ways, and I'm actually the best. I am amazing, right? But it has taken a lot to learn. So how do you interrupt that thought pattern?
One thing I want to lead with this is the way that I am going to answer this question is I'm running under the assumption that people are not quite aware of the distinction of this voice from their voice. They may see it really as their own. And so a couple of things that I want to say about it, my thoughts about it is, again, it's kind of the voice that stands between where you are now and where you want to be. And so I want to actually do a fun little exercise, if that's okay with
Yeah,
you,
please.
to first of all, find it again, kind of assuming that I don't know if it's the inner critical voice or if it's just the voice of truth and reason, and I should listen to it. So for yourself or for your listeners, something to write with, or you can hold it in your head. And I'm actually going to do it with you, and we can maybe talk about it. But so the first thing is I want you and all of us to think about something that we secretly aspire to be. So if it's a novelist, a New York Times bestselling author, something that you secretly long for, and write it down. And I'm going to assume you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the next thing I want you to do is to write down this prompt, which is, of course, um, where did I put it? And of course, I don't have it. Can't believe
That's okay.
that. So sorry. I am very good at being prepared. So I'm just going to ad lib. Okay, so you have your secret desire, and now I want you to claim ownership of it by writing, I am a blank, whatever your response is. So I have a New York Times bestselling author. I am. And I want you to write this down 5 times as fast as you can. Don't censor yourself.
Okay, so for those of you listening at home, we are doing this actively. I want you, if you're not driving, if you're not doing something where you can't do this, but if you're listening, if you're doing dishes, dry your hands and actually work through this with Daneika and I, because I'm doing it. My writing is messy. You can hear my pen scratching, but this is really, really powerful stuff. So take the time to do this for yourself. So, Daneika, I'm sure there is some psychological background to this. I'm thinking like the key of repetition and the key of affirmation. Do you, I don't want to derail your thing, but is that what we're doing here? Are we exercising some of that?
Yeah, essentially, for those who may not be aware of that voice again and kind of see it just as a part of them and they're not able to make that distinction. I just want you to see that when you're claiming something new, how it comes up and being able to distinguish what it says. Because what I have found through this exercise is when you claim that you're, a fabulous writer who, affects millions of people, whatever it is, you will get that voice strong and very, very clear. And that's the point of it in the beginning, is I just want you to be able to identify it. And it sounds like you already got that, Larissa, but for those who are at the beginning stages of maybe writing their first book and they're not able to do that distinction to go, oh yeah, there it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
always negative in all of the things that it says. And so to kind of why I'm doing that is because, number one, create the awareness around it, name it as this would be strategies for kind of dealing with it, to be able to name it as something separate from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make it a funny critter, and the name is Worried Willie. Do you have a name for
Oh,
yours?
that's cute. Um, I did. This is a way tangent off the side. I went to group therapy for a while, and that was one of the exercises they had us do was name the voice in our head. And I cannot remember what the name was. This is why I write things down. This is why I'm a writer, because I don't have a memory worth anything. But yes, I did have a name at some point for that voice. Yes.
Okay. And so what I have found, to kind of circle back into your question, is then the ability to name it kind of gives it some breathing space, right? Because I don't know about you, but if I don't practice this awareness, it is very easy for me to go, you know what? It's right. This is terrible. I can't write this. I can't, like, I will believe, I'll buy into it. And then now I'm in a place where I'm not showing up in the way that I want to.
Mhm.
So, as a step one, identify it. And then do you want me to lead right in with some strategies for dealing with it? Because that's one of
Yeah, so
them.
I've got it written down 5 times. I've got my goal, and then I've claimed that voice. And I want to, do you mind if I share mine? Because
Yeah.
it's funny, and I've had a lot of insights while you're talking. So my very low surface level goal is I want to be a successful publisher with a wait list of authors. That's my goal. I want to have manuscripts coming in. I want to be able to support people to the fullest. And so I wrote down, I am a successful publisher 5 times. And what I've realized in the 4 minutes that we've been doing this exercise is that even in my claiming, it felt vague. And it felt like, what does successful mean to me? Because I actually am on the, like, to anybody looking in without being in my head, I am a very successful publisher. And so just the exercise of writing it out for me was like, what the hell is that voice saying? I'm already this. I am already this. And so I want to thank you for that exercise, because that was the first thing that came to my head in my business goals. I want to be a successful publisher. Well, I already am. I already have, not quite a wait list. We're not quite there, but like we're getting close. And I don't think I had recognized that and even claimed what was already a reality in my life. So thank you for that. But yes, if you would mind leading us through how some techniques to silence that inner critic, or provide the opposite, or whatever your tips are.
Okay. The one I want to say, back to what you said, is that I love that. And I love that you shared that, because we have, again, it seems like such a common theme. What I have found with this inner critical voice, I can laugh about it now, but you okay? Okay. Um, but again, being in the midst of it, it's not funny. But what I have discovered is when you listen to what it says, like you just said, and it's telling you you're not this or that, what I have actually found to be true, though, is if you question it, which would be my second tip, is you will find exactly that. Like, but wait a minute, I have done that. I am that. And that's what's so, I don't even know what would be the right word. Like, it just causes so much dissonance, right? Because you're like, here it is saying this to me. I'm buying into the belief. But if I pause long enough to actually question, wait, is this actually true? More than likely you will discover, but like you just said, but I am a successful publisher.
Right?
Right? So
Yeah. But somebody else's voice got in my head, and as adults, we have all this exposure to other voices through social media right now. And I know for a fact it's coming from social media comparison. And I'm sure you and I could have a whole conversation on why social media is really unhealthy for that inner critic voice. But that is really, really fascinating. So thank you for that.
yeah. And so yeah, the final tip on that, like with the questioning, I don't want to get too technical and jargony with you, but what I will say is the questioning of that inner critical voice. And what I mean by that very specifically, okay, so what it says to you, you are not a successful publisher, then literally using your brain to search for the evidence that contradicts what it says to you. And what I have found, from my own training, as a coach, and just going through the writing process, is that it kind of interrupts, these neural pathways that you build in your brain. They say what you associate, what fires together, wires together, to give you lingo. So the things that you associate, this becomes your default way of thinking. And that inner critical voice, right, over and over again, listening to it, believing it, just kind of deepens that default way of, yep, it's right. I can't do this. Nope, I'm never going to do that. But that disrupts that. That questioning is like a way to build new associations in the brain. And so consciously practicing, as you were saying, that repetition, that would be the third tip of reminding yourself, but no, wait, I am that. And looking back on your own life experience of, but I have done that before. I have been successful at this before. I have started writing and completed it. Whatever your, prevailing thoughts of your inner critic, but those are the three tips: is to name it, to create that awareness, question it, and find the evidence to contradict it. And over time, if you make this a practice, what I've discovered and listening to others is this is the way to turn the volume down on it and just bypass it, because you don't get in that rut of, oh no, what if it's right? What if it's not good enough? In some way, it's, yeah, okay. I'm going to just keep moving forward. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to get through it. It's fine. Does that make sense without?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may share another story from my life, is my husband and I have gotten very good with open dialogue and open communication, and really identifying in each other when you can see the wheels turning in their head, that they're saying something that's not helping them. Right. And we've gotten accustomed to that. And this is why I love partnering with coaches like yourself as well, because you're partnering with someone that is trained to watch for these things. And something we do, not often, but every time we feel like, we just had this conversation this morning of, we need to do one of these sessions of just talk about everything that is scaring us. Every little voice that's in our head that's getting in our way, because our daughter is starting school in September and I am freaking terrified. And I know I'm building it up more in my head than it needs to be. But we need to have this one-on-one conversation so he can be the one. So when you're talking about you being the pattern disruptor and trying to get in your head, that can be really hard, especially when we've been doing this for literally 30 some years. This is the voice we've had. Partnering with someone like your spouse or a coach, probably even better to partner with a coach. Honestly, my husband's very good at what he does, but not all husbands are. And having that open dialogue of like, do you hear yourself? Like, let me help you understand all the ways that's not true. Let me help you find the evidence to pile and fill that hole that you're digging yourself. Yeah, and this is why people like you exist, to be that partner for that inner critic, or against that inner critic. I guess it's against the inner critic.
Yeah, I think one thing I will speak on, I had no plans of doing this, but I'll just throw this in as a side note because it is related to this. Identifying that inner critical voice, listening to you talk about the conversation that you're having, the open dialogue with your husband, made me think of something in psychology that's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And to just give you a quick gist of what that means is that our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create our action. And so if we think about that inner critical voice running our lives unchecked because we're not aware of it, it causes us to feel the self-doubt, unmotivated, procrastinate, afraid. And from that place is how we act. So we don't show up for what we want. And so the power of that awareness, again, is to disrupt that, to question the thinking of the critic, can change the way we feel and change the way we behave.
Yeah. And I know I'm a very big fan of CBT, cognitive
Oh,
behavioral therapy. Very, very big fan. Psychology student here, working on my degree right now. So
great.
talk science and psychology to me, baby, because I love it.
Oh,
But I find you talked about one option of not showing up. I find with me when I get in these loops of fear, particularly, fear drives overaction in me where I put way too much effort into something. I plan to the extremes. I plan for every single scenario and I burn out hard. And I think with a lot of creatives, a lot of us, not all of us, have ADHD where we hyper focus the hell out of something and then we lose interest. But it's in those moments of hyper focus. A lot of times they are fear driven for me. And then I burn out within 3 weeks and I can't do that thing I loved anymore. And I think what you're talking about with the inner critic is identifying like what that voice is saying and then how you're reacting out of it. What is the cycle that you're trying to break so that you don't burn out every 3 weeks? You don't write in your book like for 8 hours a day for 3 weeks and then never look at it again. And that happens so often to my wonderful, wonderful authors because we have this great intention and we sometimes we go in rooted in fear of like that voice telling you you're not a very good author and you're like screw you, I'm going to prove to you that I am. We work really, really hard for 3 weeks, we burn out, and then we end up adding to the pile of evidence that says you're right, we're not a very good author because you never finished. And that's heartbreaking to me, and I see it all the time. I mean, like I said, I've been working on my memoir for about 2 years now, and I find these new revelations every time. And this is the longest I've ever worked on a book. Usually I publish, print, and or write and publish within about a year. And so this is a long led project for me. And I do want to get into talking to your book before we close out as well, so we know what to expect from you. But I think that that inner critic, it can feed those obsessions and that burnout cycle. Absolutely, it can.
yeah, I think that I love that you brought that up because that is absolutely true for me as well. In experiencing the effects of that fear-based talking, like you're saying this, ooh, you're not good enough, and now that needing to prove. And listening to you say that made me think of, since you're a fan of CBT too, of then the reframing of, well, what would be the most loving thing to do for myself right now, or the most loving thing to do when I go work on writing? What feels loving, not making me clench and feeling tense and like I have to do something. And I'm saying this to you as I get myself in these cycles as well.
Mhm.
I'm very aware of that. But I love how you brought that up, the opposite end of it, because I see in myself, like you said, that burnout, okay, hyper focus. And then I also see the extreme opposite of I'm going to give up before I even get started because I believe what it tells me, that
Mhm.
it's just not possible for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I just had this conversation with someone the other day. Some of the best coaches that I know are the ones still working on themselves. So like that realization that you have of, yes, that cycle still exists in me. If I partner with a coach that knows it all, I'm going to be really frustrated with that coach because they aren't willing to learn and accept that there's new possibilities. So, I mean, Daneika, even the fact that you're willing to like, open up to like, oh, that's me too. Like, well, there's something I got to work on. It opens you up to attract the type of people that you want to work with. Right. And we try to do that in our writing as well. We try to attract the right people and share our message in the right way. Let's talk about your book. What is your book titled and what's it about?
Sure. So the book is actually a collaboration with 9 other writers, and the title is Shout It from the Rooftops: Personal Stories to Transform Lives. And it is literally, as the title suggests, um, kind of a reflection for all of us on the journey that we have been through in our own lives and those life lessons, those gems that we've all collected, and wanting to share that with others, a part of our own personal story. So My shout it from the rooftop is about the importance of trusting yourself and living by your own lights and not listening to those external voices like the inner critic. And then I share 6 personal stories of the journey that I've been on in my life of developing that self-trust and that self-confidence and inner conviction and being in my creative power and understanding who I am as a human, as an artist, as a writer, all of the things. Um, yeah, hence the type of coach I am, right? My own journey.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to if you haven't lived it and are continuing to live it, you're not going to be a very good coach for me, anyways, for my personality, because I need to know that you're on a similar journey to me to connect with me. Well, that was absolutely beautiful. I understand that you have a little bit of a free giveaway for our listeners. So anybody that wants to get in touch with you more or hear more from you, how can they do that?
Sure. So you can find me on my website is learning2fly.org and it's the number 2. You can connect with me on Facebook at Learning to Fly Coach. And my free giveaway is basically a deepening of this overview that I gave you for dealing with the inner critic, but it's 5 simple practices to move confidently in a new direction. And so this can be applied to anything. And that is also available right on my website, right on the front page.
Yeah, and I would almost say it's worth going to that resource and to, Daneika's pages in every phase of the publishing process that you're on. So go there for your writing when that inner critic shows up and says you're not a very good writer. Go there when you start getting into editing and you're literally getting feedback from your editors that is compounding. You're not a very good writer. Here's all the ways you can be better. Go to those resources and lean into these exercises. Same with marketing, same with publishing. When your book actually comes out, Daneika, and you have that feeling of, oh my goodness, people are actually reading my stuff now, I highly recommend you check out your own practices because experience tells me you'll need it and you're well equipped to deal with what's coming to you. But it's also an incredibly beautiful process. There is nothing like writing a book and bringing it into the world. I mean, there's having children, which is a close comparable, but it's wildly different because that child is going to grow up and be independent of you, where this book will always be a representation of you or the you were in the moment anyways. And it will always be that reminder of something that you did that was incredibly special and incredibly unique to you. So congratulations on being on the cusp. And by the time this show comes out, your book will be out, and we'll make sure to put it in the show notes so you can check out the chapter. All of the links to connect with Daneika are going to be in the show notes as well. I highly recommend you reach out to her or at least grab her free resources and get on what I'm sure is an amazing email list of tips and tricks. So definitely do that. Daneika, I always ask my favorite last question is, what advice do you have for aspiring writers?
I have a couple of things I would say. One, don't give up. But I think the favorite thing that I love, and it's actually not mine, but it's from one of my favorite people, which is Julia Cameron. I love The Artist's Way. Check out that book. But her thing is the importance of surrounding yourself with believing mirrors, people who believe in you and support you through the process, that don't tear you down like the other critic, but finding those people that will reflect back to you the innate value that we all have and the stories that we're all here to share. If you're a writer, you know that. That's what you're here for.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Sorry, the positive mirror. What did you call it?
She calls it believing mirrors.
The believing mirrors. I love that very much. And when I talk about my publishing house's origin story, that's exactly what I want to be. It's not in that language, but it's being the cheerleader for the author that the author deserves, that the author deserves to partner with someone that honestly believes in them and their work and is going to do everything in their power to help them see the success that they dream of. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Larissa. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of I Wrote That. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our show so you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. And if this has led you to some inspiration to want to get started on your own authorship journey, whether you just have an idea or you have a manuscript that you're ready to publish, reach out to us at nextpagepublishing.net, and we will match you up with our team of experts to make the journey simple, easy, and smooth.